Bueno, como ya me han introducido, soy Blanca Narvaez, soy la directora de la Fundación Mutualidad. La Mutualidad es una entidad de previsión social, gestiona seguros, ahorros, pensiones para el colectivo jurídico y para sus familias. Y vio la oportunidad de montar una fundación para cubrir la obra social del colectivo de mutualistas y de la sociedad en general. Y una de las líneas de trabajo que desarrollamos desde la Fundación es comprender a las sociedades más longevas y entender los retos que plantea la sociedad. Y por eso para nosotros es un honor tan grande poder presentar hoy a Herminia Ibarra, que es profesora de London Business School, del INSEAD, ha sido profesora en Harvard, es experta en liderazgo y hoy nos va a hablar sobre The Future of Work for Longer Lives. Herminia, muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, muchas gracias. Bueno, muy buenas tardes. Les voy a hablar en inglés. Espero que me disculpen. I want to talk about a trend that I have been seeing accelerating in the 35 years that I have been studying people's careers. And that is that we're making more and bigger career changes throughout our lives, not just early on, not just in mid-career, but also as we get older and even get closer to retirement, which is a word nobody likes to use anymore in any case. Now, just as an experiment, let me ask you, would you raise your hand if you have recently made a career change, or if you're thinking about making a career change, or if you're in the midst of making one now? Raise your hand if this is a topic that is relevant to you. Okay? Okay, now keep your hand up, keep your hand up. Add your hand if you know if somebody close to you is also in that situation. A spouse, a child, a friend. Okay, so as you can see, this is a trend, and it's a very real trend. I want to talk about the factors that are really accelerating this. There's 4 of them. I want to talk about what's hard, because I'm a psychologist and a sociologist, not an economist. I'll give you the labor market trends. However, what I'm interested in is what you do about it, how you experience it, how you actually make the change or not. So I'm going to talk about what's hard, and I'm going to talk about the things that make it easier. Hopefully in 20 minutes, all right? So 4 trends. One is we're living longer. If you are 60 now, and healthy, you're very likely to make it to 90. If you're 50 now, you're very likely to work into your 70s, whether you like it or not. There's lots of reasons for that. Now, as we live longer, we don't want to do work that we don't like. We don't want to be doing the same thing forever. And part of what's interesting about what longevity has done, I have colleagues at London Business School who wrote a wonderful book called The 100-Year Life, is that it is destroying what was the classic structure of a life, the 3-stage life. A little period when you're young, when you learn, a big period that's getting longer when you work, and then a period towards the end when you rest or retire. If we're living longer and longer, nobody wants to just keep stretching out indefinitely that long working period. And so what that means, and we're seeing it already, is we make more transitions between periods of work, periods of going back to school, and periods of taking a break, at least theoretically. You know, I'm a professor, and we see older and older students all the time who are back there to reinvent themselves. The breaks, the sabbaticals are still a difficult topic. Our organizations don't make it very easy to do that, but I have friends at the Harvard Business School who are militating on this. They've launched something called the Sabbatical Project with a lot of information about how to do it, how to negotiate it, and they're trying to change employers' attitudes towards this. So we're living longer, that's changing careers. Technology. Who doesn't talk about technology, AI? It is changing everything, how we work, where we work, when we work. It has created a lot of opportunity. Who doesn't enjoy being able to work from anywhere? But it's also threatening our jobs. And so we know all the statistics, the famous Goldman Sachs report about how 300 million jobs are going to be either destroyed or completely altered. And here's what's interesting. It's not so much that the AI is going to take our job. It's that technology has been fundamentally eliminating over time the idea of a job. You know, what's a job? You do something you go and do 5 days a week somewhere. Some things are discretionary, some things are not. No. Now we are no longer thinking so much in terms of jobs. We think in terms of tasks, because technology has allowed you to disaggregate the old job into things that you could automate, give to the technology, into things that you could give to contractors, to platforms. You pull it all apart. That's what Elon Musk was doing when he went in and told civil servants, what are the 5 things that you accomplished this week? He was thinking in terms of tasks, not jobs. And so what that means is we need fewer people to do these things, which leads me to the third trend, which is employers, large organizations, mostly businesses, are restructuring. I mean, they've been restructuring for a very long time, but it's gotten quite intense over the last number of years, responding to competitive pressures, globalization, technology, financial markets. And what has happened are 2 things. One is we're seeing mass layoffs more and more. I've lost track. I started counting. I couldn't even put on a slide all the mass layoffs that were happening. The other factor is shifting to contract work. Right now, I think it's a McKinsey report, has it at 36% of jobs in organizations that are done by 36% of the working population is doing contract work, and that's only going to rise. These 2 trends, for better or worse, very much are affecting the population that I'm studying now in my new work, which is about career changes after 50, in our 50s, in our 60s. If you look at the labor economics, the incidence of salary employment starts to decline across all countries after age 50. And what do we do instead? We do contracts, we do consulting, we do advisory, we do boards, we do lots of different things, which can be a great opportunity to do what you love, but it can also be precarious. The fourth trend is a social one that has been going for a very long time. What we want out of a job is a lot. We want everything. We want passion, meaning, we want purpose, we want flexibility, we want all these things. And unfortunately, again, our big employers don't know how to give us that. And in fact, the trends have not been so great in recent years. We know about how engagement in work has been low, but the numbers in terms of things like stress and burnout and issues about well-being are also growing in importance. So there's a mismatch between what we want from our work and what is available. When I do surveys of people looking to make careers, they want more meaning, but they're also escaping a workplace that has become toxic for them. And we see more and more that in every year in the surveys, the escape from toxic work is getting to be a bigger and bigger factor driving people to change careers. So those 4 things, as you can imagine, are really coming together. We see more of it, and what I have observed is that even though we're making more of them, voluntarily and involuntarily, it's still really hard to do. People really struggle. It is a period that can be exciting, but it's a period that's kind of nerve-wracking when you're in the midst of all of this. There's 3 reasons for it. One is we really are what we do. Work is a master identity. It's what fills our days, it's what allows us to have mastery, to have feedback. Our networks are very contingent on what we do at work. And so when we lose that, or when the prospect of losing it is a threat, our sense of identity gets destabilized. We don't know who we are anymore, and that's a very unpleasant thing. A second one is, bear with me, this is a little bit jargony, but as we move through our careers, the changes that we make are much more what sociologists call under-institutionalized. So let me explain. When you're moving into a career, earlier in your career, you have a script, you have a timetable, you know what to do, you're going through the steps with other people, you have more seniors who are explaining what to do. Think about making partner in a law firm. You know how long it takes, more or less, you know what's required. All kinds of things are pretty much set. When you start making career changes at mid-career, you're kind of doing bespoke things. Say you're in finance and you want to be a wine entrepreneur. When do you do it? What are the steps? Who's a role model? How long is it going to take? How do you measure your progress? All of these things you have to make up for yourself. And so it makes it harder. The decision making is harder. Assessing how well I'm doing is harder. It takes longer. The third thing that makes it hard, and this is the thing that I had always heard the most in studying career change, people say, I know what I don't want. I know exactly what I don't want. It's usually what you have. But I don't know what I want instead. And when you don't know what you want instead, it's hard to know where to start. It's hard to know how to search. So those are the things, at least that I have seen, that make it hard. I've got 5 things that help. I have more, but I'm trying to be economical here. 5 things that I have seen help. I've created some courses for our alumni at the London Business School who are looking to make career changes in their 50s and 60s. I've been studying them, both by surveys, but also I have a batch that I've been following over time in in-depth interviews, and I've learned a lot from them and watching their experiences. So 5 things. Here are the 5 things to take notes on. One is we have to learn how to search differently. I have to learn how to search differently. All of our lives, we have been taught that when you want something, you figure out what it is, and then you go do it. Start with the destination, know what you want, so that then you can figure out the steps. That doesn't work so well with career change. First of all, like I said, most of the time we don't know what we want. Sometimes we think we do, but in fact, as you start getting more acquainted with it, you discover that that's not what it is at all. I had an interview with a Wall Street Journal journalist who was telling me, absolutely, I have been dreaming of quitting my job so that I can write books. I got a book contract. I took a sabbatical to write one. I decided I hate it. I cannot stand it. I could not get back to my job fast enough. It's too lonely. It's too this. Really didn't enjoy it. And so we need to, instead of first figure out what we want and then put in the steps, we need to experiment with possibilities. We need to do in order to learn. Try some things so that we can figure things out. It is a loose search. I talk to my students about the difference between being hunters and explorers. When you're a hunter, you're after your prey, you know what you want. It's great if you know what you want and it ends up being feasible. It ends up being what you like. For a lot of people, that's not. Today, the explorers have the advantage because you can investigate a whole range of possibilities at the sweet spot between what you enjoy and what actually is available to you as a job. So we have to become more explorers. Second thing is we have to embrace the fact that we are multiple, we are many, we are multifaceted, because we've always been told as well, get in touch with your true self. Now, I hate to break it to you, but nobody's true self is IP lawyer at a big firm. That's not it. We're a lot of different things. The poet Walt Whitman had this wonderful line, I am large, I contain multitudes. And people who study the psychology of identity see that as well. We're very multifaceted. There's a lot in us. But when we're threatened by the idea of losing our jobs, when we lose our bandwidth because we're working so hard and so many hours, it gets very hard to imagine anything other than a small variation on what we're doing already. And that's not helpful in a world in which a lot of the job landscape is in flux. One of the things that I do with my students, it is the most popular exercise by far. I ask them to make a list of their possible selves. That is, to imagine possibilities for the future, but make the list as long as possible, as divergent as possible. They don't have to be coherent. They don't have to say, who do I want to be in 5 years? It can be things that are improbable. It can be things that maybe are unlikely, but it allows them to start getting more creative with themselves. And it allows them to start moving into the third thing, which is do projects. Try things out. Diversify. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. I'm actually surprised when I survey my students in their 50s and 60s at the number of different things that they're doing. They're on boards, they're in professional associations, they're taking courses, they're giving courses, they're writing books, they're doing advisory. They're doing a lot of different things because the way we learn as adults is actively by doing. That's how we get the expertise that then makes us attractive for those new and different roles. That's how we learn if we like them. That's how we build the networks that we need in order to move into those things. So we have to get a lot better at experimenting and creating a little bit of time in our very busy lives to do some of these different things on the side. Number 4 is about our networks. We have to get a lot more expansive about our networks. Everybody knows we get jobs, we get roles through networks. Everybody knows this. Most of us are really terrible at it. And I can tell you that because I survey people very directly on this. I have been studying this also for a very long time. We're really bad at it because we don't put time, we don't put attention into it. And if you look at social psychology, it is very clear that as human beings, we develop relationships with people who are just like us. We love people who are just like us. They're so interesting. And absent that, who are in the office next door, who are easy to get to know, so we don't have to go out of our way, we don't have to take initiative. My summary of this research is that we are narcissistic and lazy, and that means that our networks are not very good for changing jobs, for being creative, for being innovative in our firms, for doing everything that is anything that's a little bit different. And you know what? As we get older, it gets worse. It gets worse for a lot of different reasons. There's a term in somebody who does kind of sociology of aging, they call it socio-emotional selectivity. What does that mean? You can't be bothered. You can't be bothered. You have your friends already. You have your people who you know well. Why go out of my way? But then what happens is the world changes and your network has withered away and you have to work hard to reactivate it, because you do have to work hard at keeping contact, at meeting people who are different, at talking to people who are younger, at talking to people who are in different areas. So anyway, this is a big one. The fifth thing is what I call self-reflect out loud, okay? We talk a lot about the value of self-reflection. But if you just self-reflect in your head, all you have is past experience that may not necessarily help you move into new waters. And we like to stay in our heads when we're still unsure, when we don't have the elevator pitch all worked out, when we don't know yet exactly how it's going to sound, when we're a little bit embarrassed or very embarrassed because we've lost our jobs. So we wait and wait until we have it all figured out to talk to anybody. And that's exactly what you need to figure it out. I make my students start very, very early when they really don't know what they're doing, but they realize that once you have to verbalize it, either you realize how unstructured it is. It makes sense in your head, but the person in front of you does not understand. Or you actually realize how much clarity you have that you didn't realize, because that's what you're getting back from other people. So these conversations are very, very important, as are being in situations that lend themselves to having these conversations, because we have few of them. And that brings me to the last thing I want to talk about. I study individuals. The advice that I provide is to people making career changes, but there's a lot that we can say as well to organizations that hire people, to educational institutions, which are not always the most innovative, and to all different kinds of institutions that are there when people find themselves at a crossroads. There has been a trend for more progressive organizations to put in place programs that say allow or help people find projects outside their dominant area, particularly as they're starting to move towards retirement. That's great, but that's not enough. It's not enough. Those things don't help us build the kind of career agility and transition fluency, understanding what transitions are all about, that we really need. I think there's a huge role to be played by educational institutions, associations like Aspen, to a lesser extent platforms, but we're starting to see them emerge. When it comes to educational institutions, there was a big innovation at Stanford a number of years ago, it followed by Harvard, to create a program for people to come back in their 50s and 60s and figure out what next, almost like a back to school. Now, that was great and limited in scope because it was really geared to people who really could afford a very expensive program and a year off. But interestingly, Stanford has taken a role of proselytizing and has been working with schools not just across the United States, but also they've been behind a program at Oxford and at Cambridge as well, and many others, but helping them to figure out how to tailor what they need to a broader array of constituencies. Maybe people who can't take that much time off, maybe people who can only come at night, but who benefit from what one of my colleagues calls identity workspaces. That is, places where you can come together with kindred spirits to learn something, but not just learn something, create a new network, talk to people about what you're trying to do, generate more creative ideas about what's possible, open your mind, almost a holding environment for the kind of career changes that we need to make. So there's a lot of innovation there. There's a lot of organizations. I don't know about Aspen, but I suspect it might be. It attracts people who are thinking about what next, who are thinking about how they might contribute differently. Is there a way to make those conversations more explicit? And then there's a lot of experimentation happening with platforms. One that caught my eye where I live in the UK is called careerscanchange.uk. And it started with a very simple premise. They did a survey of people, I think that they started in the late 40s. And a very high percentage of them said they were contemplating making at least one career change before retirement, but only 15% said they had ever had any advice, any career advice on the topic. So lots of opportunities as people, as institutions. I'm going to stop here. There's a lot of promise in our longer lives, but it's going to take some hard work and a lot of initiative to really fulfill that promise. Is very much worth it. Thank you very much.